Through bacteria, we're going to move on into eukaryotes. And we're going to start by talking about the life cycles. So just in review, if you remember, the oldest fossils of eukaryotes appeared about 2 billion years ago, which is almost 2 billion years after the prokaryotes appeared in the fossil record. And this occurred after the oxygen revolution, where the production of oxygen through photosynthesis led to an increase in oxygen in the atmosphere. Alright, so eukaryotic life cycles involve an alternation of generations. By that I mean the alternation between haploid and diploid life stages. Sometimes the haploid stage is very short, but in a lot of organisms you have actually mitosis occurring as a haploid organism. And so you can have multicellular life forms which have only half of the genome of a diploid organism. So we'll go through these in class, but essentially meiosis and fertilization are what separate your diploid life stage from your haploid life stage. And depending on what type of organism you are, the diploid stage may be more dominant or the haploid stage may be more dominant. So we'll do this in class, but the human life cycle, it has a very small haploid generation, and then a very long, most of our lifespan is in the diploid stage. And fertilization and meiosis are what separate the two. Alright. So protists then are our group of eukaryotes which really don't fit. They are not a monophyletic grouping. It's polyphyletic, because when we talk about protists, we usually don't talk about plants, we don't talk about fungi or animals. So we're excluding those and just really including a lot of these unicellular organisms. Basically, they are eukaryotes that are not fungi, plants, or animals, which is a very diverse group. They can have separate means for locomotion. They can have flagella. This one actually has multiple flagella. They can have cilia, which is shorter, but the beating of the cilia help propel it. Or they can also have these projections of cytoplasm caused by shifts in the cell membrane called pseudopodia or false feet. Protists can also be classified according to their nutrition. They can be autotrophs, so they can be photosynthetic, like these diatoms. You may recognize those from what we saw in lab. They can be heterotrophs, where they have to consume other organisms, or they can be both. They can be mixotrophs. So we saw some euglenia, which are able to do both in lab the other day. They can reproduce asexually, which is most of them are able to reproduce asexually through mitosis or through budding, and also sexually. So they don't have the exact same mechanism of sexual reproduction as in mammals, but something very similar. Some of them may be obligate sexual reproducers, so they have to reproduce, or sometimes they will only do it under stressful conditions. Protists can also be unicellular, colonial, or multicellular. So we have algae, which form plant-like multicellular organisms. We have volvox, which look multicellular but are actually a colony of unicellular organisms. And here are some diatoms that are also unicellular. They also can cause human diseases, so some of them are pathogens. So malaria is a worldwide problem, or was a worldwide problem until we killed a lot of mosquitoes. It's caused by a pathogen, a protist called Plasmodium. Beaver fever, you can get this by drinking water that has fecal matter in it from other animals. These little protists called Giardia can give you a very bad case of diarrhea. There's also toxoplasmosis, which is caused by a protist. In cat litter, and makes its way into the sea and can infect sea mammals when people flush kitty litter down the toilet, so that's not a good idea. Protists are also an important part of symbiotic relationships, including mutualistic relationships where two species live together and benefit each other from that association. So lichens are a mutualistic relationship between an algae and a fungi, and corals are a mutualistic relationship between an animal, a coral, which is a cnidarian, and a protist, a zooxanthellae, which are dinoflagellates. And that's it. We aren't going to go into the diversity of all the different groups because we're doing that in the lab. And that's it for eukaryotes, life cycles, and protists.